Somebody was give me a particular example where when somebody wanted to go for a contract meeting, he actually borrowed keys of very luxurious cars of some of his friends, and then when he went into the meeting, he dropped the keys on the table. So you want to appear in a certain way. It's just reinforcing that there's a social proof pressure. Just go to Facebook and you see people talking about they just closed a funding round of $2.5 million or $500,000, and as a result, you also feel the pressure that you also need to announce, you also need to demonstrate something, about your business. And as a result, it creates that level of pressure on the entrepreneurs, as it were, to keep spending from the resources of the business. They dip their hands into the pockets of the business. Every single profit they make, instead of reinvesting into the business, they put it into buying cars, houses. And you want to buy a luxury item, you want to travel, you want to spend, and believing that it will always look like that. But it never always looks like that, right? Let's ask yourself that question. The money has come. What I want to use it for now? Is it going to lead to company growth, or is this for consumption? Because consumption will deplete your business at the end of the day. Welcome to the Diary of an African Entrepreneur, and we've been covering a few topics over the last couple of weeks, and we've looked at the subject of identity, we've looked at the subject of the imposter syndrome, we've looked at the subject of scarcity mindset, and more recently we looked at the subject of the fear of visibility. And we also looked at the subject of the God factor. We're going to be tying up the series in this particular phase, which I call the foundation phase. We're going to be tying it up and looking at the subject of delayed gratification. And this is a skill or an attribute. And you understand why I say it's a skill. It's a skill that many of us can learn, although many people feel you're born with it, but it's a skill that many of us can learn. But it's one that helps to determine whether the business you are building will stand the test of time, or it's just one of those things that will come and go, or we just keep at a particular skill that will never transcend or beyond where it is currently. And I'm sure that that's not what many of us as entrepreneurs are actually looking at in terms of achieving. Many of us might have heard of the concept of the Marshmallow Test, and this was a test that was conducted in the 1960s by someone called Walter Mischel. And the test is simple. He put together a number of children, and then for each of them, it gives them a 15 minutes time frame where he puts one marshmallow in front of them. And the only rule is they should not eat that marshmallow till he comes back after 15 minutes. If they can manage to do that, he is going to reward them with a second marshmallow. But if they cannot manage to do that, he would not reward them with another marshmallow. I'm sure many of us are very familiar with this test. And the remarkable outcome of that test was that many of the kids that were able to wait out the 15 minutes and did not touch the marshmallow, he followed them through the course of their life. And what he discovered was that those kids that were able to wait it out and were not in a rush and waited for the second marshmallow, they were more successful across a broad range of areas across life, career, family, and that has to mean something, right? But I think there's a part that is not as commonly spoken about, because there was a follow-up test that was done in 2018 by researchers at the University of California, Berkeley. And what they found out was that those kids that actually waited out, it was not an instinct that was built in them that made them able to wait it out. Rather, when they adjusted for different factors, they realized that those kids that waited, or those kids that delayed the gratification, actually had more stable homes, more reliable caregivers. And so what it meant was that they trusted the process more, that this person that says he's going to come back in 15 minutes and give me more is going to do exactly as he has said. Now, you see what I'm trying to say is that they were not necessarily born with that skill of being able to delay gratification. Rather, that skill or that nature was shaped into them by the environment. It was nurtured by the environment, by the people, by the exposure they had. So in other words, delayed gratification can be learned. That's the summary of where I'm going. It's something that you can imbibe, you can figure it out as you're going on. So I think I want us to start from there to know that this is something that can be learned, and more so for even African entrepreneurs. And you're going to see why I'm talking about this. There are actually 4 factors that I realized that work against us as entrepreneurs when we think about the concept of being patient and, delaying our gratification. The first one is what I call the social proof pressure. And many of us know what this means. There's the old pepper them gang. You have to show up. Sometimes I've been in places before. Somebody gave me a particular example where when somebody wanted to go for a contract meeting, he actually borrowed keys of very luxurious cars of some of his friends, and then when he went into the meeting, they dropped the keys on the table. So you want to appear in a certain way, and many people believe that even that nature itself helps you to get contract. Now, I'm not yet to disprove or prove that, but it's just reinforcing that there's a social proof pressure. Everybody wants to show that they've arrived. Everybody wants to show that, I'm doing a business. Therefore, you have to realize that I'm doing well. There's that pressure, whether we like it or not, in the African context, in the Nigerian context, where you want to prove a point. Many people didn't believe you when you set out to start that business. Many thought you would fail. And so there's a point to be proven. And as a result, it creates that level of pressure on the entrepreneurs, as it were, to keep spending from the resources of the business. They dip their hands into the pockets of the business. Every single profit they make, instead of reinvesting into the business, they put it into buying cars, houses, leisure travels, buying luxury items, eating in the fanciest restaurants, taking people out on the gifting, generosity, and a lot of that. So that significantly then impacts their ability to continue to reinvest in the business. So there's that social pressure. The second is what you call the provider burden. And some people in some parts of the world label it as black tax. And this is really around the inability to say no to family, friends, parents, grandparents, cousins, church members, everybody around you. They need certain things from you. There is that proof. It becomes a real problem because this is not just you trying to build something. This is you saying no to people that have been there for you, all through your life. And I think there's a real challenge there. There's a real tussle that shows up there. And so it shows up in that burden of being a provider, that you need to take care of all these different people. There's also the issue of environmental instability, right? Because the reality is that many people feel that anyway, things are not, the economy is in a certain shape, and when the economy is in a certain shape, you want to take whatever resource you have and put it to certain use while you can. So as a result of that, it's a real problem that keeps people from being able to hold on to the resource of the business and reinvest into the business. The old YOLO thing, you only live once, so just spend, as it were. And then the last, what I call the hustle culture trap. Just go to Facebook, go to Instagram, go to anywhere you see people talking about they just closed a funding round of $2.5 million or $500,000. I just reached the revenue milestone. They talk about the growth of their businesses, how many people they are hiring, and you see all these pictures, you see all these things that are happening, and as a result, you also feel the pressure that you also need to announce, you also need to demonstrate something, about your business. So whether it's, you now feel like people ask me how many people do you hire, and I say I hire 50 people, it gives some credibility to the size of the business. And so you just hire even when you don't need more than 5 people, you just keep adding people to the business. So you keep confusing speed and growth with impatience and fragility. So this is more or less a side also called trap, where you want to be like the Joneses. You're looking at what other people are doing in terms of how they are celebrating their achievements, and you also want to be like that. 2 very quick examples I'm going to give you. One example is of Dangote. There was a time he was interviewed at Harvard, I think it was in 2015, and he said something about somebody giving him money at some point when he was just starting off. I think it was about $750,000, and said he returned the money. And the reason why he returned the money at that point was because he was concerned, he was scared that he would not use the money appropriately. And eventually he got to a point where $750,000 is nothing in the business of Dangote, but rather what he decided to start doing was, if you've listened to his recent interviews, I think there was one he did with the CEO of Norwegian investment bank, and he said that every money they make, they keep reinvesting it into the business. And I'm asking myself, if Dangote at this stage is still reinvesting all the profits, or most of the profit they make from the business into the business, I mean, that says something as regarding how he has successfully built what he has. There might be many factors. You can talk about favor, talked about government benefits and all that, but there's something about reinvesting the monies you've made back into the business and making sure that pass the next phase of growth for the business. The same thing with Jeff Bezos. For many years, Amazon just kept grinding, kept growing, but they were not profitable. And in his first shareholder letters, I mentioned that the goal or the purpose for which any company should strive for is to maximize shareholder value, and he was building for the long run, and he kept reinvesting the resources back in the business, putting everything back in the business. And I mean, Amazon is where it is today. And these are two examples of people who, even though it's completely vastly different context, they share the similarity in the sense that they believe in the compounding value of putting your resources back into your business. And I say that again, the compounding value, because it compounds, right? It's not an arithmetic progression, it's geometric, where you keep putting. I mean, you see this when you invest in stock markets, in ETFs and all that. Money compounds. It's the same thing, everything you put back in your business, it compounds. It's not just an arithmetic growth. But then I think mentally we need to deal with those issues that currently present themselves as a limitation to our ability to reinvest back into our businesses. So I'm going to present a framework as I always do, and I'm going to call it the PACE framework, PACE. And the first thing is you need to protect the seed capital in your business. And many of you will be familiar with this. You get certain bursts, you get certain growth. There are periods in your business that it just looks like everything is looking good and there's excess that is coming in. And the first thing that comes to most people's mind, it's at that point that the social proof becomes a burden. You now want to do something about it. There's enough excess money. You want to buy a luxury item, you want to travel, you want to spend, and believing that it will always look like that, but it never always looks like that, right? But even if it will continue to look like that, rather than spend at that point where the money is coming in, pull some resources apart and continue to focus on how do I reinvest part of the excess that I'm getting, the surplus that is coming into the business. How do I plow that back into the business as much as possible so that it continues to enable the business? Ask yourself that question. The money has come. What I want to use it for now? Is it going to lead to company growth, or is this for consumption? Because consumption will deplete your business at the end of the day. If it's for powering the company growth, then that is what it is. So protect the seed capital. The second thing I'm going to talk about is you need to anchor to a future number. So sometimes it's always very abstract when you are just saying, okay, I'm just keeping the money to invest into the business. You need to be working towards a goal. You need to be telling yourself whether it's a revenue number, whether it's another set of KPI, a number of customer volume shipped number, whether it's number of customers that have signed up on your platform. There has to be something you anchor on. That is the goal that I'm setting for the business, and therefore every money I'm putting back into the business is because I want to achieve that goal. The moment you hit that goal, then move the goalpost forward again and tell yourself that now that is the next goal I want to achieve, right? And you keep putting the money back into the business in order to achieve that goal. That's to anchor to a future number and build towards that future number. The third thing is create a delay rule, and what that means is create a delay between when there's the impulse and there's a spend. I mean, this is a common rule that I've had so many times, where they say that if you have something, even for consumers, for individuals, if there's something you feel like, oh, I need this, I need to buy it, give it a 48-hour timeline. If you still feel so passionately about it after 48 hours, maybe there's something there. But more often than not, when you go to bed and you wake up the next morning, you don't feel as strongly about that thing you wanted to so desperately spend on the day before. So create a delay rule and tell yourself that whenever there's an impulse or a desire to spend on something on the business, or for myself, or for whatever, give yourself a 48-hour timeline just to allow yourself to really assess and see if it's something that you truly need to do at that time. And then finally, you need to evaluate by the decade, not just quarterly. In other words, when you're making a decision for the business, or you have those extra cash, just think about the business in 10 years time, not just, okay, this quarter, how do we get across this quarter? What are you building for? What are you building towards in 10 years time? So you're evaluating your business. I think Jeff Bezos did this quite a bit, where he was always out, looking forward and trying to ask himself, where do I see this business over this period of time? And he kept projecting into that space and working on it. So it's something that mentally there has to be that mental shift where you begin to think in that mode of 10 years, and then you begin to build. What I've seen is that people whose build businesses have compounded significantly are building for that 10-year mark, right? And not just for this month, not just to, I don't want to pay salaries, I just want to feed my family, this month. That is all they think about. So you need to think in that regards. So that's the PACE framework. I'm going to give you an assignment, what I call the compounding audits. You need to audit the way you spend today. The first thing is review your spend and how you spend money. Look at the last 3 months, the things that you've spent money on as a business, and ask yourself, am I building or am I depleting? In other words, every single use of cash that you've made, did it go towards building the business or was it depleted? In other words, is it gone? Yes, you can justify why it's gone, and I think I'm not here to validate or disprove those explanations, but what I'm saying is that if it's gone, it's gone. No matter the explanation we give to it. So is it depleted or was it used to build? And I want you to do that exercise. Look at the last month, maybe not last 3 months. If there's nothing in the last month, you can stretch out a bit to the last quarter, but look at the last month and ask yourself that question. Then the second thing, the seed question, where you identify the very last time your business had a surplus, even if it was a very small one, and what did you do with it? I think it's important to ask that question. When the last time your business had a surplus, what did you do with it? Is it still sitting in your bank account, in the company's bank account, which is, the second best thing? The worst is, it's not there, it's gone, it's been spent. The second best thing is still there in the bank account because you don't know what to do with it. But the first and the most important thing is that, have you found the opportunity to reinvest that back into the growth of the business in a very, very careful and thoughtful manner? Then the third thing is the 10-year projection. So you want to write down what your business would look like 10 years from now. What would your operations look like? How vastly different will it be from what it looks like right now? And if there's one thing that you need to change to shift the trajectory of the business over that 10-year period, what is it going to be? And then how can your resources move into the business in order to enable that? I want to leave you with something, and I'm going to read this out to you because I want it to come out as effective as I would like it to be, because this is the end of this phase, the foundational phase. We're going to be going into more practical, hands-on things with regards to the business from here. Delayed gratification is hard, and it's not because we are weak or because we lack discipline. It is because the environment most of us grew up in, social pressures that we navigate daily, the genuine instability of many African markets, push us in a direction that makes it difficult for us to delay gratification. But here is what I've watched happen over and over again to several entrepreneurs who figure this out. They build something that survives, something that outlives them. They build something strong. They build something that compounds. Each year, it's slightly bigger, it's slightly stronger, it's slightly more capable than the last year. And that's not because, they found a shortcut, but it's because they resisted those shortcuts and they built for the long haul. I talked about Aliko Dangote, and I told you that how we built Africa's largest conglomerate. He built it across 14 years of consistent reinvestment, one deferred reward at a time. The same thing with Jeff Bezos. He did not build Amazon in one fiscal year. He built it across 2 decades of choosing the right long-term signal over the short-term pressure. You do not have to build at that scale, but you have to build with that same discipline. That principle works at every size of every business. And so the marshmallow will always be in front of you. The pressure to eat it now will always be real. The question is whether you feel the pull to do so. And the question is, what do you do next? So yeah, that's the last episode of this series on the Diary of an African Entrepreneur. So over the last 5 episodes, we have done the internal work, which is the foundation of looking at our identity. We looked at mindset. We looked at the subject of self-doubt, fear of visibility, and then now we're looking at the subject of delayed gratification. And all these things, they have to be solid before the tactical work actually sticks. So we're going to be going into the next phase now, and in the next phase we're going to be starting with something that many entrepreneurs leave until it is too late, and that's on validating your idea before you spend money on it. Many people feel like they need the money before they start, but we're going to be looking at, are there ways by which you can validate if your idea actually has wings before you actually spend time, money, resources on it. If you found this episode helpful, if you there that was very helpful to you, please share with friends, share with colleagues, share with family, and do subscribe to the channel as well. It helps to drive the reach to many people who are looking to or who benefit from listening to it. So till next time, my name is Deji Adebusoye. Thank you very much.